Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
I see that comment in chat, and I'm not sure how to take it. I don't know if God's Auditor is speaking from experience, but okay. So apparently there's a different flavor to the different octanes of gasoline.
I thought that was just the year they came out.
I don't know. Who knows these days? I mean, everyone has their choice of poison, and apparently my poison of choice is work. Which is part of why this is the first show that we've done for Kanar with Damar in a fucking month. Well, technically 4 weeks. But still, you get the point. It's been a while. And I'd have to say that from what I've been loosely able to pay attention to, I've missed some shit, but haven't at the same time.
I mean, there's the whole Star Trek stuff and attempted Halo stuff.
Oh, which apparently the most recent episode of that was the closest thing to Halo that they've done yet, because there were actual battle sequences.
Yeah, it's amazing how something that's rather subpar can be seen as good just in comparison.
It's like when you look at Star Trek, when you look at Lower Decks compared to Discovery and Picard, Lower Decks is at least tolerable. Because it's being compared to Discovery and Star Trek Picard, which... Is Jurati really the Borg Queen now? Is that the route we're going now? Like, seriously. I'm about at the same spot that Critical Drinker is. To where... I'm about to just fucking give up on the entire franchise at this point. I mean, you have a show named for Picard. It's supposed to be centered around the main character of Jean-Luc Picard. Yet he's never the main character in the story.
I mean, he's kind of there sometime when they don't focus on everything else.
The kindest way I could say his involvement in the show most of the way through 2 seasons now is he's a convenient plot device.
I came to think of a thing earlier when I saw one of the videos from Major Grin. It would be fucking hilarious if they ended season 2 of Picard with them jumping to the right timeline again. But in this case, it's the actual right timeline. As in, they jump to the Prime Universe timeline, or Prime timeline. And they see the real Picard on his deathbed, being met by these people who doesn't understand, being surrounded by Riker, being surrounded by all the other people around him who were actually with him at the time, who were his closest friends and acquaintance.
It's de facto family.
Yeah. And making it such a way that everything that's been happening up until that point has been a separate timeline. The whole thing with Q hasn't been to test the prime timeline Picard. All of that has been one of his parallel universe counterparts. And that's why everything's been so fucking off.
basically an extended version of the Tapestry.
Yeah, pretty much. Because if they did that, I think I would way rather in that case rewatch both season 1 and 2, and maybe actually get an ounce of enjoyment out of it rather than just frustration.
I don't know, because wouldn't that, how would that affect the nostalgic gut punches that they've been hanging on to for so long? Hey, remember this character? Oh, they're dead now. Hey, remember this character? Oh, they're dead now. Hey, remember this character that actually really helped this one character reconnect with her humanity and really helped her character growth? Oh, we're not just gonna kill him. We're gonna fucking torture the shit out of him.
Well, I have one or other two words to that. Harry Kim. You can kill the prime character, and still keep it all running. That's not really an issue. But you can see how this would be something that happened in that universe, how things happen differently there, and how completely alien to the I I'm just going to call him Picard 2.0 in this case. How completely different to Picard 2.0's universe the prime timeline really is.
That, that would be interesting to see if they do find a way to get to that point and do play it that way. I would accept it and actually be appreciative of it, because that means that the executives and showrunners have finally realized and come to grips with their errors and are actually doing something that could turn the page to move on from it and repair the bad will that they've cultivated so far over the last number of years. It would be interesting to see if they actually have the emotional and intellectual maturity to recognize that opportunity and then actually do it. Plus it would actually go away to showing that they're not just hack writers and they can actually write a compelling storyline from time to time.
But in that case, that would mean that they'd have to give up everything now, being the prime timeline.
You
And in
mean
that
they'd have
case,
to admit the truth?
they'll both the truth, and that in everything here now, with what they've been trying to build, what they've been trying to claim, none of that would actually be accurate. It wouldn't be, oh yeah, it's Picard coming back and it's this and that now. No, this is a completely different Picard. He's in the same, or he's the same person, but it's a completely different universe. It's a different timeline. Everything there is a different thing as opposed to what we've known and seen before. And that's really where the main change is. They would have to admit to being not just lying about it, but to not having a single fucking idea what to do up until that point.
I mean, they haven't they already admitted that with some of the commentary that they've uh, responded with when questioned about their knowledge and tie-in and how they're going to address certain things in a canonical sense. I mean, hell, fucking the showrunners and writers at Halo that tried to wear it as a badge of honor that they never played the game.
Yeah. Which, what is it with media the last, oh, I'd say 10 years now? Making it more and more obvious that if you do something that's completely disrespectful to the genre, to the franchise, to the audience, it's a good thing. I mean, going so far as to look at singers and shit like that too, with whoever the fuck it was who got up on the stage and just pissed on it.
Oh, that was some no-name band. For a second, I thought you were going to talk about the singer who has been going around and advocating in favor of doing something about climate change while flying around in a private jet to all these events. And not just flying around in a private jet to all these events, but showing off her bare ass as she's getting onto said private jet to one of these events. While a beauty pageant winner has to put on the hooded sweatshirt of her boyfriend in the airport because, oh, your top is too revealing. Think about the children.
Yeah. Sadly, it seems like a lot of these people are thinking a bit too much about the children most of the time.
Oh, and then you have that wonderful shit that's been going on. But that's away from the sci-fi entertainment genre stuff. That's going to be more of the fun we get into in part 2 of tonight.
Yeah, I wouldn't actually mind it if you had something that was a completely horrible fucking sci-fi setting, where you had child grooming, where you had indoctrination, where you had all manners of fucking rape and shit like that. But please keep it sci-fi. We don't need that in reality.
For a second, I thought you were advocating for the Imperium from Warhammer.
I don't know. Fuck that. No, we can't have the Imperium.
Well, a lot of what you were just saying is in Warhammer.
Yeah, but I can't stand the smell of incense.
True,
Too much
true.
of that stuff.
Yeah, the Ecclesiarchy and the Mechanicus do tend to have a lot of fun with that side of things.
Yeah. No, you can't trust them too much with that. But otherwise, I don't mind having a dark sci-fi universe. I like having dark sci-fi universes. But we don't need to make it a reality. Or we don't need to make a reality a dark sci-fi universe. I mean, 1984 wasn't supposed to be a manual for how to actually get this shit done.
Some people think it is, though, and that... Well, okay. Which sci-fi setting would you prefer to see explored upon more? Because I'm kind of starting to think that if we go into the megacities of Judge Dredd, you could have a lot of fun in that setting, going down that road.
You know, I don't think I would mind that. Because there's some really fucking vile shit going on there. I mean, they have recycle crews. They have people literally just picking up the fucking dead from the streets in order to recycle them into food.
One condition, though, one caveat.
Hmm?
They follow the example of Carl Urban, and the actor who plays Judge Dredd never takes off the fucking helmet.
But why not just cast Carl Urban?
He might
Red
be...
edges.
Well... I know if he's up for it. Why not?
Because I really like him as Judge Dredd. He was perfectly in character there. And he kept being a character.
He actually put the effort in to learn about the character and how the character was supposed to be, to where it was a Judge Dredd movie, not a Sylvester Stallone as Judge Dredd movie. Which, granted, the Stallone version, campy as all fuck, still entertaining, but the Carl Urban one just goes that little bit more. It has that more grit, which actually, when done right, a gritty sci-fi show, be it a TV show or a movie, can be amazingly fun to watch. But it's got to be done right.
Yeah, it has to keep to its own rules. It needs to be cognizant of what it actually is. If you have something like Judge Dredd, it's a very and what's the fucking word? Not retro, future punk. What the fuck is it called?
Oh, the cyberpunk.
No, not cyberpunk. The it's something punk. I can't remember exactly what the designation of it is. But you need to keep that setting. You can't just slap more shit into it. Hello, Jay.
Hello.
You can't just slap more shit into it and hope that it'll work. You can't just slap on, well, say like that, complete cyberpunk elements. You can't slap on steampunk. You can't slap on just a happy little community doing their own little thing and doing it in the name of equality, because they would literally just get ass raped and killed the first fucking day they tried.
You know what, though? Go into a setting like Dread, go into one of the megacities like that, have a group of people try to start up something like that, and show just how brutally it would fail. Do it. That would be fun to watch. And also, it would show just what kind of writers you're dealing with, what kind of showrunners you're dealing with. Can they look at these aspects of society and do commentary on it in an appropriate way that is honest and actually worthwhile? Because let's not forget, it's entertainment media. Entertainment media is supposed to do, well, it has two purposes. One, to entertain, and two, to get a message out there, to provide some sort of social, societal, or political commentary. Lately, they've been going way too much into number two and ignoring number one.
I was half expecting a sound clip there. But yeah.
No, I haven't had a chance to get everything set up.
They're trying too fucking hard to make everything into what we have today, and trying to be so fucking on the nose with it. Imagine a Judge Dredd show. 20 seasons per or 20 episodes per season, and making it, say, have both an episodic and semi-episodic formula. Similar to what they tried to do in sort of way in Enterprise. So it has standalone episodes where this is something where everything's just self-contained. And then you have episodes where you have 2, 3, maybe even 4 episodes in a row dealing with what's actually happening there, dealing with a larger part of the story, a main quest if you want, and just making it so that everything there is is coherent, and it's put together in such a way that you can watch the standalone episodes just fine. But then you have the longer, almost movie-like segments too, where you have this self-contained little thingy in 3 to 4 episodes.
Yeah, it's amazing how Star Trek has actually been able to pull that off between Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, how you have that mix. Yes, you have an overall series story arc. You have just mini episodes that are factor in character development, but other than that, have no impact on the the series, the show long arc, and then you have your season long arcs and multi episode arcs. It can be done, but you need a good writing staff that can do it. And you need a cohesive vision from the top of where the entire series, where the entire show is supposed to go. But it seems like they're too afraid to do that. And I don't know where that fear ultimately is coming from. Because they're still paying for the shit, so it can't just be that they're afraid of not making the money on it.
I would venture to guess that the fear from all this is that they don't want to get tied to an overall storyline, and have it make sense. And that's because it's predictable at that point, especially when you can start piecing together which episodes tie into the overarching story or not. Like, for example, if you look at Enterprise, seasons 1, 2, and 4 could be standalone seasons all on their own and have no real gel with the third season, with the exception of the first 2 episodes of season 4.
Yeah, because you're dealing with the fallout of the immediate aftermath of season 3.
Right, but at the same time, all 4 seasons together tell an interesting story of early Starfleet. That if you watch it all as a history, a chronological history of Star Trek, it makes more sense that way. I would liken it to the storytelling that they did with Avatar: The Last Airbender versus what they did with The Legend of Korra. Avatar: The Last Airbender had, from beginning to end, the overarching theme of the Avatars needs to bring balance to the world. But yet there are a bunch of standalone episodes in each season, but there's overall season arc of which element the Avatar is learning, yada, yada, yada. And it was well made, well executed, and everything. But in Legend of Korra, they were starting to try and push narratives and didn't have an overarching theme for the whole series, even though you had some character development for Korra, but not
in the same
overarching
vein.
Yeah, it's like Aang has to get over his pacifism and realize that he has to fight, but Korra just fights and powers her way through everything. And in the end, she loses everything, but at the same time, she gains everything back by being the bridge between the two worlds. She's like supposedly supposed to be the last Avatar, but they haven't delved into that much.
She's a bit of a Korosu, though. No, but she has no long-lasting issues.
Right, and that's just it. That's to the detriment of their story writing, because they make it so she can overcome everything practically by just brute force, and they set that up with the very first episode when you first meet Korra as a child, and she comes out, I'm the airbender, or I'm the Avatar, whatever she says,
And just mastering everything right away.
except for airbending because she's too stubborn.
Well, why not in that case make it so that she can't at all learn airbending? Make her into a character.
Well, the way they got around that is that she couldn't learn airbending because she was just stubborn, and it wasn't until she got all her other bending blocked by a bloodbender basically taking away her ability to use the other elements because she never learned airbending, and eventually she realized she basically, out of sheer desperation, just tried, and it worked. And it was more of a come to Jesus type moment.
They MacGuffined the shit out of it.
Yeah, because technically, if he chi blocked the one, he chi blocked all of them. But it is what it is.
And that's why I think it's fucking lazy with how they did it. And
I would agree.
But it's something where they could just say, okay, yeah, she can't learn airbending. How do we get around it? How do we make it so that she can actually still focus on the other 3? How can she master the other 3 and still be the Avatar without learning airbending? and then take it from there, rather than, oh yeah, but she doesn't need that because she's just so good. See, she's amazing. She doesn't need the other ones. She just needs this one.
Oh, you mean kind of like how it took one character years of work off screen to be able to do what they want, but then the pseudo descendant in a trilogy to come afterwards figured it out just by giving it a shot on a whim in a high stress environment?
Kinda, yes.
Well, you
Which,
know,
that being said, I'm not against being able to push yourself towards something when it's actually a high stress situation. But in those cases, you're not going to be perfectly apt at it. You're not going to be able to control it properly.
and kind of stemming back to Avatar: The Last Airbender with this, if you look at the way Aang originally enters the Avatar state, which is the ability to use all the elements at all times, whatever. It's a defense mechanism because he's under a lot of stress, or is the situation requires him to have that ability.
Yeah, and it is
It's not
entirely uncontrolled.
It's not until season 2 that he learns why he has it, and it still takes him the rest of that season to learn not just how to master the Avatar state, but also how to master the earthbending, because earthbending and, well, the way they describe it in Avatar is that the opposite of your element is harder for you to learn because of the simple fact that the fundamentals of the philosophy behind that bending is so counterintuitive to the way you were taught your initial bending ability. So earthbenders have a hard time learning airbending. Airbending has a hard time learning earthbending. Water versus fire, same thing. They're diametrically opposed. That being said, it's not impossible for you to learn it. It just takes longer to learn it. And when you learn all 4 elements, you are able to then really truly control the Avatar state. And that's when you become your full potential.
Yeah, that's something where. Okay,
God damn it.
And yes, Leon, that is something that I was planning on bringing up later in the show. So save that one.
But looking at it, okay, let's say Star Wars. The first thing when Luke was actually getting into being able to use the Force, he was essentially just trying to dodge small laser bursts. And he was doing it at a, let's just say, a kind of shitty rate. At that point, if you follow the Legends material at least, he already had a connection to the Force. He had just been using it unconsciously. When he was flying his Skyhopper, for example, he wasn't using the Force consciously in order to shoot Womp-Rats. He wasn't using it consciously to fly. When he was in other situations, it was just one of those things where instincts took over. When you then look at Ben, when Ben tried to more and more teach him, this is what to look for, this is what you actually have to do, this is how it manifests itself to you. At that point, it started making more and more sense to Luke. It was one of those things where he had these things, but he hadn't really noticed them before. And then when you look along at it, or when you keep looking at it, you see his growth in, having Ben talk to him. And then after that, going to Dagobah, learning more about the Force, and in turn getting to a point where he is he's able to use the Force more, but he still doesn't have the internal calm in order to use it consistently, as we can see in the Wumpa Cave. And then if we just fast forward to the end of the 3rd movie, when he's fighting Vader, and he is finally actually in control of himself to the point where he can duel Vader, he can still use the Force, but he doesn't necessarily have the skill yet in order to do it in a way that's proficient to the level of Vader.
Well, and you even get a glimpse of that because there's that brief moment where Luke does lose control and ends up cutting off Vader's hand, only to realize the parallel that he already had a robotic hand like myself, and he started to see himself in his father, in Vader, and he came back to his core training and the calm and the that whole at that point he was like, no, I'm done fighting him.
Yeah, and it was a really monumental part of the movie. Had they had someone who was, let's say, less adept at the whole thing when it came to writing and actually cutting shit together, it would essentially have been Luke just cut Vader down. It wouldn't really have mattered. Vader's the big bad, so he has to go. Followed by Luke just taking out the Emperor. And now the rebels won. It would have been an empty victory. It wouldn't have meant anything. But Luke actually coming to the maturity that he understands his father. He knows what's happening there. He's comfortable enough in the Force to not give in to the dark side. And yet he is willing to give up his life if he needs to. If this doesn't really, or if this doesn't pan out the way it's supposed to be, he still did it, and he still tried to save his father, and that was essentially enough for him. If he had pulled off some serious fucking, well, Force shit at the end of that, everything else would have been negated.
It would have been cheap.
Yeah. And now we can look at the movie that came after that. Ray. Ray has no formal training. She has no informal training. She has nothing that would explain her being good at anything with the Force. She just uses the Force. She knows what to do. She has everything handed to her, and it isn't explained. She's just that good. Looking at the second movie there, and the whole fucking levitating rocks and all that bullshit, that would be something that requires a lot of concentration. That would be something that's a really advanced technique. And only a couple of days have passed from the first movie. She's not supposed to be at that point yet. And instead of doing it the way that would actually have explained everything like this, and making it so that she was an Imperial fucking double agent all this time, she had been indoctrinated. She just was not aware of it. She had not, or rather, she couldn't have remembered anything due to indoctrination. Instead of doing that, instead of making it so that at this point in time, she gets activated, everything comes flooding back, and she realizes that she is an agent of an Emperor, be it a clone or whatever the fuck. And then she turns on the rest of them. The reason that she's actually so powerful in the Force is that she has been created to be. She's actually a highly trained individual, but she was made to forget the rest of the shit.
That would have made too much sense.
Yeah, but we could actually explain more shit too. Like, what's his face? Benicio del Toro, in the second movie, where they just trust him, or the others just trust him, in the casino and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
And everything like that. Everything that happens there is because she has been conditioned to actually trust the Imperials. Even if she doesn't realize it herself.
Yeah, there was so much potential that that the foundation was laid in the first movie, even though it was a very, very high school level rewrite of episode 4. But even with that, they opened up some things that could have been very well explored. if they had competent writers. But they showed that they didn't. And then when you start having the studio dick around with who's actually in charge of the project because of political reasons, that's when you end up with Rian Johnson running the show. Yay.
Oh, come on now. Wasn't that bad.
Yes, it was.
No, see,
Wait, where's my
Bullshit.
well, here's where the sequel trilogy really went wrong, and where the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy gave themselves room. Multi-year jumps between the movies. When you have 3 movies that flow damn near back to back to back, you're limiting yourself on how much you can actually develop the character. But when you look at Luke, you had a couple of years between A New Hope and Empire. There's off-screen developments there. Then you, again, have a jump between Empire and Return of the Jedi. And, again, off-screen stuff that gives time for developments and advances in a character to happen that would otherwise be filler fucking montage material in a movie that would only make the movie longer and oftentimes harder to watch. And the overall pacing, you know, that's really what it comes down to. There are 2 things: having a good story to begin with, and then having the right pacing for the story. If you get both of those right, you can end up with a good, very good multi-movie series on your hands. But you screw up one aspect of it, and you're toast.
But that means you actually have to put in the effort too. That means you have to actually, do it right.
You say that like that shouldn't be the expected standard. And this is where, sorry, I look at the paying audience in general. By accepting the bullshit and the cheap and the easy material that they've been putting out, by accepting what you have been given at face value, you're just as culpable as the people that are in charge of the creative decisions.
I mean, I think that you're being a bit harsh now. People are happy to pay, what was it, $6,000 for a shitty fucking hotel stay? That's essentially a shoddy theme park deal.
Oh, and that's just to get in the door.
And then $90 photographs for low-end ones. $10 a pop fucking cokes.
Are we talking about theme parks or are we talking about sporting events at this point?
Yes.
Right. The sporting eventing question is, how do you make these fucking fools pay you as much as possible?
Oh, Leon, sorry, Cal got it right. You are paying $6,000 for the privilege, not just the ability, Cal, the privilege to play bingo in Huddies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I am, quite frankly, though, I am amazed that they have managed to even get that shit started. But then again, everything there is covered in secrecy. Everything up until this point has been essentially a hidden project when it comes to what's actually involved in it. They've shown their own stuff of, oh yeah, but this is what you get, this is how it happens. But people haven't really been able to verify that. And now when shit is coming out, among other things from Overlord DVD and what's the guy? Knight? I can't remember the rest of his name.
Oh, I can't remember either, but
Yeah, well, those two at least. And when they keep talking about everything that's actually happening there, how it's essentially it's a shit show. It's a scam. I have no idea how to describe it other than just as a right and proper fucking scam.
oh, it is. And I think where the idea actually started and where the ball really started rolling that has led to this point, Galaxy's Edge.
Most likely, yeah. And then after that, it's just,
Alex-
just going.
Having recently went to Disney World, I would say that Galaxy's Edge, if it had been thought about that they were going to do this potential space cruise, for lack of a better phrase here, they should have planned to have that attached to the opposite side of that section of the park. Like literally attached, you have a way like a special landing port that comes out into the center of that park. You don't have, so that way you don't have to cut through everything else. So that way it's literally stays in the zone or the mythos.
But how are they going to get you onto a box truck for an hour?
Well, that's what the whole Rise of the Resistance was. Have you watched my vlog on that yet?
Oh no, honestly, I have not. There's a reason why this is the first episode of this in 4 weeks.
I know. But not to sidetrack us too much from sci-fi topics, I almost thought I was going to have to work 7 days this week because my boss was was leaving early 3 days this week, and then I had to work Thursday for her. And she's like, "I'll be able to work Friday and Saturday, no problem." She works Friday, and she's like, "I can't do Saturday." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." She should have just called me on Friday morning when she got called into work half an hour early because of somebody breaking into our store for 10 packs of Camels.
That's just fucking sad.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I would like to know who the hell thought that this would be a good idea for Disney.
Well, Disney has been making a lot of stupid mistakes lately, both in the parks and in the movies, and in their own dealings with state governments.
Oh, that's that is another fun occurrence that has come up. And actually, that just happened this past week.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was quite the.
do either of you think that if it were to go to a referendum for the counties that would be affected, do you think they're going to vote to actually take on the burden of what Disney has been doing since they built the fucking park?
Nope.
If they have any fucking sense, they won't. But at this point in time, politicians over there and since, politicians anywhere since, haven't really gone hand in hand.
Well, let's also remember this is Central Florida.
Yeah.
So it could go either way. Because, well, and here's the thing. Actually, you know what? We just might get some special point of view about that whole fucking rigmarole in a little over an hour.
Yeah.
That's a point of view. That is a perspective on it that I would be interested to hear.
I think a certain someone is going to be
Yes.
slightly unhappy over it.
Do you know? We'll just have to wait and see.
Be right back.
But yeah, no, it's just in general, the storytelling of media today is just piss poor at best. Is the way I want to say it, because I mean, nothing new that's coming out, even from the franchises I've liked, are getting me to want to watch anything. Like what's recently come out. Bad Batch I didn't watch yet. I don't plan on watching it.
I started to watch it.
Hold on just a second.
The initial bit showed promise, but other things got in the way, so we did stop watching it, so I can't speak further on it. But the premise that they had set up for Bad Batch in the first few episodes was actually looking to be a good storyline. And that's the thing, is with as harsh as my criticism of the general media offerings and the general writing that we're getting, I will concede that there are instances out there where something new has been done, where be it a new show, new movie, or new installment in an existing franchise, where things have actually been done well, where you have actually had good writing, competent writing, an enjoyable story. I mean,
Where was I?
starting to talk about Bad Batch. And,
Bad Batch, yeah.
And what's really frustrating is that there will be times where something will start with good writing and then fall off a fucking cliff.
Oh, there's a few shows that I know that have done that recently. And they jumped off the cliff episode 1. Yeah. Anyways, Bad Batch, back to what I was saying. When they got introduced into season 7 of the Clone Wars, I thought that made a great story arc. But I don't know that I necessarily want to watch a whole series about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, and that's where I should say the first couple episodes, we watched it on the server, and the first couple episodes were actually pretty good. It was actually setting up to be a decent show, because you follow the Bad Batch after Order 66, and it's just, how do they cope with it, because they're quote unquote defective, which is why Order 66 didn't actually affect them in the way that it did the other clone troopers. But it did start to affect one of them. And the dynamics from there,
Yeah.
It was actually, the premise was set up well. It was just, didn't get to go further to see if they actually kept with the quality writing that they had in the Clone Wars.
Well, the thing about the Clone Wars is that Dave Filoni and George Lucas had a way that they wanted it to go to lead up to the Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
And Cartoon Network didn't want to deal with it, and then Disney bought out the rest of the Star Wars franchise, and finally gave them the green light after like 3 years to finish that 7th season. So they compressed so much into it. But I have to admit, the way they ended it was a lot better than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, they did.
That shows how quality
well
of writing in the middle of uncertainty.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is, you have people out there in Hollywood, in media in general, that actually know how to handle a story, know how to write a story, and know how to handle a series, even with uncertainty. Filoni is one of them. Favreau is another. But even their works together, it hasn't been perfect, but it has been better than other offerings that we've had. Because Mandalorian Season 1, breath of fresh air. Season 2, kind of miss.
Well, season 2, I think they were trying to set up a longer arc that so far hasn't been able to take place because of one, Gina Carano's issues, and then Kathleen Kennedy. Oh,
Yeah.
who am I kidding? It's just Kathleen Kennedy, but you know.
Well, that's where it all stems from, yeah.
But the fact that they brought in the Book of Boba Fett to kind of fill that gap, the potential was there for a great show. If they had, and I hate to say it, if they hadn't had brought in the Mandalorian into the last 2 episodes.
Well, and here's the thing, though. I remember watching the Book of Fett, and it had potential. The flashback scenes, especially in the first few episodes where they were still establishing things, those flashbacks were great. Why not just do that? But the constant back and forth and the drastic difference in Boba was... It made it difficult to watch. And the most well-received episode of that entire series didn't have Boba in it at all.
I know.
That's a fucking problem.
That is. So, but it was literally just because of Grogu being involved, and that's what irritates me about the fandom in general. And I liken it to sports fandoms. You have those true diehard fans of whatever insert show, movies, any media content that has the potential of being franchised. Then you have those, casual fans, but aren't like bandwagon fans. Then you have the vocal bandwagon fans that think they know everything there is to know about insert, again, whatever it is.
Oh, you have no experience with that type of fan base in Seattle. Not at all.
Or in New England, or insert any major city that has a sports franchise, really.
Well, a successful sports franchise. That's the biggest thing is the sports franchise has to have recent success, and then you start getting those types.
Yeah, but like, just to branch off again away from this stuff a little bit, I happened to stumble. I rarely check my Facebook page, but I ended up going onto Facebook for something on my phone, and I saw somebody had posted that. Was it Jason Lockenfora or Adam Schefter had reported that the Seahawks were signing Colin Kaepernick, and then a whole bunch of my friends on there were like, "Oh, I'm no longer a fan, selling my season tickets, blah 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 blah." And I'm like, some of them are like, okay, that's just hyperbole. They're not going to do that. But there are some of them that I'm like, yeah, I knew this was going to be an issue, because as soon as their politics clash with whatever they're a fan of, they jump ship right away.
Yeah, and that's where, if you're sports, if you are mindless entertainment, if you are supposed to be part of the escapism, leave the fucking politics out of it. Now, if you're a entertainment media series that is also supposed to be some sort of societal critique, okay, have political things in it, but have it be in a way that makes sense. Like Star Trek used to. Don't preach, don't browbeat, but provide commentary. I think that is the art that a lot of the media avenues have actually forgotten how to do. They have forgotten how to provide commentary, specifically social commentary, without becoming preachy.
Now, this is actually something that looking at this, I can actually fully support the whole, this person is getting involved, I'm out. But in that case, you have to have some kind of consistency with it too. And you have to actually have proper reasons for it. If you take something like Colin Kaepernick, you might not like what he's been doing. And not liking what he's been doing could be seen as a proper reason to not support the team anymore. if you think that it's going to be something that actually affects the team. At the same time, if you have something like, say, a TV show now takes on a certain actress from the Aquaman franchise, which shall not be named uh, in this video, but maybe the next one, most fucking likely the next one.
Or both.
Yeah, if you have someone like Amber Heard being written on, for example, for a TV show now, I can see people not wanting her and not wanting to support her, even if they like the TV show otherwise, just because they know what's been going on there. The same goes for just taking on anyone like, how was his name? Epstein, for taking on someone like Maxwell, for taking on anyone like that into either the cast or the production crew when they are essentially, I don't want to say tainted goods because anyone can become tainted goods, but when they have been shown in public to be really fucking shitty people.
Ezra Miller?
Yeah, that one too.
Oh, what about Ezra Miller? I hear about this.
Another instance of him getting drunk and picking fights.
And getting away with it. But everything.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Oh no, it was just exacerbated. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but everything like that, I can understand not wanting to continue watching the show due to their involvement with this one person or these people. I can fully see it, simply due to the whole thing too. With if I, for example, watch a show, I watch whatever Netflix. Say I watch Snowpiercer. If I do that and I watch it on Netflix, I'm supporting that show. I'm showing them, hey, it doesn't really matter what you've done to the show. I'm still going to watch it. There's still an interest for it. And they will be getting some kind of money due to Netflix having more of an interest in renewing the contracts, in making something more with it. At the same time, if I don't give them any money, if I don't give them any views, if I don't show a positive interest in something, then they won't know what the fuck to make of it. So say, for example, I happen to come across a used DVD of, say, Pirates of the Caribbean, and I watch that. Netflix can't know what I'm watching. They don't know that I watched the movie. No one else but myself will know that I watched it. But at the same time, if they start taking on casts that I'm uncomfortable with, and I then find another DVD where these people, this cast is on, they still can't see that I'm watching it. If I do it on Netflix, though, yeah, they can see that. Oh yeah, but there's been some controversies, but that movie still netted us $200 or $300 million. It would be worth doing something more with it. And in that case, maybe take on the same people again.
Yeah, and that's where I'd be interested to look into the actual full tracking that a streaming service like Netflix or Hulu does to actually see how they're tracking stuff, because there's they gotta know. Well, actually, no. There is sources out there from a few years ago where they were able to show we had this many views on this series, and then when views started to tank, they stopped reporting the numbers. So they have the internal tracking to show what's getting interest, what is getting clicked on, and from that click, what is actually getting watched, how much of it's getting watched, and that sort of viewer retention, kind of like what YouTube does. They have that information there. I'm curious how much they're actually looking at actual viewership performance versus while we still have this many subscribers paying us this much money, what's the problem?
Yeah, the source code for having an analytical tracker is, pretty simple, straightforward. So I wouldn't be surprised if every streaming service has that in their code, at least for them to track it. But the actual fact that people have subscriptions, well, just look at what's happened to CNN Plus recently.
Wasn't that only live for like a week?
No, it's going till the end of the month. Next Saturday is the last day you get a chance to watch anything. It's so bad that they actually started out at like a $5.99 or $6.99 price point for it, and after about 5 days, they dropped it to $2.99 for a lifetime or $2.99 a month for a lifetime subscriptions.
Oh god damn!
Yeah, so
the person subscribing or their own lifetime.
there are people who bought like a year subscription that are getting a refund plus the proration of this month as well. But what was I going to say? Oh, but the fact that the only way to challenge these streaming services is to make your own and to do what you can. Now, obviously, the three of us couldn't make our own because we just don't have the capital to do that. But when you look at like companies like the Daily Wire, Project Veritas, and whatnot, even Timcast is coming up with their own app and stuff, and they're coming up with their own side YouTube channels and side animation projects that they're going to put on an app, a streaming app. And say what you will about their politics or whatever, but the fact that they could actually create their own content, even include cultural, political, and social messaging into it, and turn it into a viable product. I mean, Daily Wire's got like three movies out now, several different shows that aren't just their typical talk shows that they've made their bread and butter on. And they're challenging, they're starting to challenge for viewership other platforms. So
it's kind of like Rumble started out as and actually still is, being seen as probably the leading competitor against YouTube because of the number of people that have been yeeted off of YouTube and have gone there because of political reasons. So there are the avenues out there, and that's what's funny. And exactly that. You need a spot with the capital that would actually be able to get the infrastructure to provide a streaming service. Probably the most hilarious one to me, and I'm not sure how they managed to actually get this name to go through, Pureflix. The Christian movie and TV show streaming service. And I'm pretty sure Kevin Sorbo has a vested interest in that company too.
Probably.
Because all of his Christian shit is on there.
Of course. I'm actually surprised he even went for a role in Supergirl, actually, now that I think about it.
Now, he's got to pull in the real money so he can reinvest it into Pureflix.
Well, he did play the bad guy, so I mean, I guess, it's par for the course. Didn't he become uber Christian after starring in Hercules?
Yes.
The TV show?
That's some irony in there, I'm sure.
But overall, the problem with the streaming services nowadays is people will pay for it, so therefore, why do we care about the quality of the content if they're just going to, even if they're just paying to get access to old shows like Paramount Plus doing with their Star Trek stuff, most people like myself, I'm not going on there to watch necessarily Picard or
the new stuff. It's all the
old new stuff. I'm rewatching Enterprise because that's being pulled off of Netflix. I'm going back and watching NCIS. I'm going back and watching Big Bang Theory and all this other stuff.
You mean back when their media offerings and their writing was good?
Well, I mean, they do have Voyager on there.
Compared to the current stuff, I've actually been enjoying watching Voyager.
Well, the only reason why you're really enjoying Voyager is because of the Doctor. Let's be honest.
The Doctor,
And
Seven,
Seven.
Harry dying. There's plenty of reasons.
Harry coming back to life,
Only
just so
to
you
die
can watch him
again.
die later again.
Yeah, but something too, which has been, well, going the way of the dodo. DVD sets
Oh yeah.
and Blu-ray sets and all that shit too. But even something like, say that you could buy a USB stick with the entire season or an entire season of your favorite show. Just make some custom DVD case and just make it flashy, whatever the fuck, and put the USB stick in there. I would want to buy something in that case like, say, Foundation. Because Foundation was good. Foundation was really good. But it's locked to one streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see it on TV. You can't see it on the other streaming services. It's locked there. And I
Damn
would
you,
rather-
Apple.
Yeah. And that coming from Apple is just amazing to me. And the best fucking show coming last year being for an Apple. I don't know. That's some weird fucking shit. And it feels like a dystopia when Apple manages to actually put out better shit than Netflix.
Netflix has always been like right
Very
down
hit or
right
miss.
down the middle. Yeah, very hit or miss on their original stuff.
Yeah.
It's either good or trash.
Oh no, we're talking double semi colliding with the Geo Metro trash there, Jared.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. They're at the extremes. It's either really fucking good or it's really fucking trash.
Yeah, but even then, looking at the stuff that's been put out by CBS, and now demonetized, looking at all the other stuff where none of the other streaming services, none of the other competitors managed to put out something that was on the level of Foundation last year. And Foundation wasn't mediocre and just good because of the climate. They were good because they managed to take a book series, managed to make it enthralling. They managed to bring it up to speed and make it something new while still hanging on to the spirit of the old. They managed to do it really fucking well. More so than Mandalorian. More so than any of the Star Trek bullshit that's been going on. They managed to hit a home run with it. And if I could just buy the DVD set or buy a season set there, say a DVD with a fucking USB stick on it, just read only, and I pay like, I don't know, $20 for it? Yeah, I would. I would pay to have that on some kind of physical media so I don't have to rely on streaming services for it or rely on having to borrow it from maybe less than legitimate sites. But Dora, how was it horrible? How was it, or rather, how did it not manage to actually capture the spirit of Foundation?
It's a good question. I mean, and after that, oh boy, you know, I still have that Screen Rant article open in a browser tab on my phone.
Which one are we talking about here?
Let me open that up and I will read the headline. I'll read the title of the article for you.
Okay, and I'll go to Screen Rant just so I can pull it up myself.
Why it's a good thing the Dune movie doesn't include the Guild.
What the?
I remember that. I wish I didn't. So fucking stupid.
What the?
Yeah.
When it came to the names, though, you had the names, but this was something that was still evolved from the story in the first book. You still had the same story, or rather, some of the same story elements, but they managed to renew it. Because, to be frank, trying to make the original book into a sci fi movie today, it would be a sludge. It would be really fucking hard to do. It would be nigh impossible to make it into something passable. However, the way that they made it now, they managed to take everything and they managed to put it into a new context. Most of the context and most of the interactions, etc., were things that would have happened in the book, but they just shifted the era. Looking at the golden age of humanity as it is portrayed in Foundation, they come pretty close to how things were actually portrayed or how they were supposed to be portrayed in the book. Looking at the Emperor, looking at the fear, looking at the downfall of the Empire, of humanity in this case, all of those things were actually things that they managed to do quite well in regards to the book and to the franchise overall.
Okay, I'm reading this article and I'm already just wanting to bang my head into the desk.
Yeah.
I'm only.
Yes, let's have a political sci-fi thriller and completely remove one of the main political elements of the political sci-fi thriller.
I'm just now starting the fourth paragraph. Oh God, that's what. This is literally like trying to tell they're trying to say make a movie adaptation of the history of the U.S. from the Revolutionary War to, let's just say, Trump's election in 2016. And you decide to skip the entirety of the changeover from the Whigs to the Republicans and the Civil War. Because, nobody needs to know about what the Republicans did to try and, with the Civil War. And I'm just, oh God.
No, but it's too complicated.
Can I just...
But here's really the thing there, Dora. It was still Foundation in spirit. And still, with this, and as you mentioned there, the Emperor being an actual political figure, he isn't, though. The Emperor isn't really a proper figure. He's a figurehead for the Empire. He's even called Empire. Or all three of them are called Empire. But it's made quite clear that no matter what happens, if any one of them turn out to be defective, they're not long for this world. They will be offed. They will be replaced by something that isn't defective.
Or so they hope is not defective.
Yeah. And looking at it, the Emperor is an Emperor. He is an Emperor essentially because he's still allowed to be. He hasn't been, not deposed, that's not the right word. He hasn't outlived his usefulness just yet. But that's really something I find to be. I find it to be interesting watching Foundation. Well, Foundation rather. Because of the way that things are being. Fucking article. Because of the way that things are being brought up to speed with modern writing, well, not modern writing, but modern storytelling, without sacrificing too much of what it used to be. There's no modern day politics and shit like that just put into it. They don't have direct involvement in Paul's emotional journey and growth.
Bullshit, they don't.
Oh no. My take on this is literally, they do realize that the original trilogy, New Episode 4, New Hope, says Return of the Jedi is meant to be a standalone. All three prequels are meant to be standalone prequels or trilogies on their own. And yes, while the bloated narrative with the Senate and political shifts across the galaxies in the prequels changes your interaction or understanding of A New Hope, that's what the prequels were meant to do, to lay the foundation of what it was and grow the franchise. The Spacing Guild's whole purpose in being there is to help Paul, or to help the reader, and should be also there in the movies, to help you understand why it is Paul is going through this journey in the first place.
You need to understand the political landscape in Dune to understand why certain decisions, why certain actions are being chosen over others. At its core, yes, Dune is a sci-fi franchise, but at its core, especially the first two books, it is very political thriller.
And I didn't even see this last line here. These examples don't ruin their respective stories, but they don't make them better either. The Guild has a similar place in Dune lore.
Now, if the Guild was not the body that they are, if the Guild did not have the political sway that they do, their fear and of Paul and what they could not see would not have pushed them to do the decisions and take the actions that they did, that actually was part of the crux of why the Padishah Emperor made the choice to side with the Harkonnens to put the Atreides on Arrakis, so the Harkonnens, with a little help from the Sardaukar, could then take out the Atreides.
And they failed miserably at it.
Well,
they take out most of the Atreides.
But they didn't take out the crucial one. Because some people... hell, the fucking 1984 version actually brought it up first. The Guild went to the Emperor. It was like, yeah, we don't care about what your deal is with the Baron and the Duke Atreides. We want you to take out the son. And the Emperor Carino is then like, why do they want the son killed? He doesn't get it. He doesn't see it at first. Paul is just a throw-in on the deal at that point for him.
And that in turn comes from the history between the Emperor and House Atreides from before. Because that was more about Leto. It was more about his grandfather, or Paul's grandfather. And therefore Paul is being overshadowed by those people and the Emperor's view on House Atreides. But you have to understand this in order to actually understand, well, the intrigues of Dune fully. Yeah. And so much more of this comes from the whole, or comes to a large degree, from the whole thing with you can't use AI. You can't use AI, which means that you need to have some form of space travel.
Yeah.
The Spice Melange helps that in order to, facilitate it by being able to actually see Zed and land in front of or inside of a planet. But at the same time, it's a drug. So many of the fucking nobles, so many of the higher caste members of every house now are using the spice, that if they don't get the spice anymore, they gonna fucking die.
Well, yeah, but and that's the thing is what reminds people of that, and this is a detail that, albeit it can be seen as a minor detail, but it was important enough that it was repeated in the books a couple of times. Enough times that it sticks. It's not just the spice. It is the geriatric spice melange, which prolongs life.
And speaking of Paul, the actor is going to play Willy Wonka in an upcoming Wonka movie.
You know, Timothy Chalamet can actually pull that off visually.
Oh no, I'm actually looking at the IMDb for it right now, and I might actually go pay to watch this in theaters.
Who else is in
Just
it?
Rowan Atkinson, but that's not the reason why. I mean, just look at this right here.
Okay.
And then you see that is Wonka, hands down, and it's the Gene Wilder Wonka that you see, not the Johnny Depp version, which is nice.
Yeah.
Is it going to act like that though?
Well,
I won't know until I see a trailer, and you don't find out who you don't have any of these character names here, so it's like, you got Rowan Atkinson, Keegan Michael Key, Jim Carter.
wait, didn't Rowan Atkinson pass away?
No.
No, not that I. No, not yet.
No. Okay. And someone else. I remember a couple years ago, one of the British comedian actors, passed away.
Which one?
It was one of the Monty Python guys.
That's probably what
I want
it
to
was.
say. I want to say it was one of the Michaels. Because there's Michael Palin and Mike. I want to say another Michael.
Let's just have a look see here in that case.
Or is it Terry? It's a Terry. That's what it was. Two Terrys.
Terry Jones.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Terry Jones, January 21st of 2020.
Okay. Yeah, Cal asking, why do we need a third Wonka movie? You know what? I do kind of have to agree with that sentiment that,
This one's about early Wonka.
well, here's the thing. There is a case to be said that Hollywood in general, Hollywood overall, has been relying too much on remakes, retreads, reboots, re-envisionings of existing and already done stories. But Wonka isn't one that really has been overly done. So I'm willing to give it a chance to actually do something.
And especially since they're harkening back to the Gene Wilder version, makes it all that much more enticing.
Yeah, because the Depp one was weird. Not terrible, but weird.
Somebody was on LSD when and I don't know why I'm still sharing screen. Somebody was on LSD when they were reading the books and then watching the first movie, and the river tunnel scene got to them.
It's going to be really hard to live up to Gene Wilder, though.
Oh no, it definitely is.
Which, speaking of that, and just comedy, etc., in all that kind of shit, why is it so fucking hard for modern franchises now to balance comedy with the rest of the show?
Good, effective comedy requires intelligence, which is something that is growing to be severely lacking.
And a willingness to offend those that aren't expecting it.
Well, no, it's a willingness to not care about who you offend, to a point.
I mean, like Chris Rock and we'll talk about that later.
I mean, that could be a bold-faced statement.
I don't know. I don't know. I think I might start the next show by saying a particular name 3 times in a row just to see if he pops up and bursts down the door.
Doesn't arrive till Tuesday.
Actually, I am expecting a delivery of something on Tuesday, so that's...
And the answer to his question, yes, that's actually what the premise is. It's not necessarily enslaved because he paid them. Didn't Gene Wilder say he paid them in like cocoa or something like that?
Yeah.
So they're not
Cocoa or chocolate.
yeah, they're not actually enslaved per se. They just might not be getting the best value for their labor.
Well, that really depends.
Indentured servitude. Think of it that way.
No, but what do they really want?
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Because if you have something like, say that you have someone who lives in the sub-Saharan desert. If I offer them a fucking what's it called, a down coat, are they going to accept it? Will they have any use for it?
Yeah, that's more it. I don't see him having a use for it.
No, but at the same time, if you look at the Oompa Loompas, what do they want? They want cocoa. They see it as being something very fucking valuable to them.
Well, Terry, they were orange skinned and had green hair. I'll let you make the assumption there.
Well, either that or Ukrainian. Well, you never know.
Well, although
It could be an Irish Ukrainian mix. I mean, they were pretty short.
they could be descendants. We could be looking, and Willy Wonka is not actually taking place in the past. It's taking place in the future, and the Oompa Loompas are all the descendants of all the Russian troops that were in Pripyat for an extended period of time.
They could be, but most of them are dead now.
I don't know.
They were cloned off of the.
Can we really trust the reporting on those numbers right now?
With how many of them are dead?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there were reports that Coach Red Pill was dead in Ukraine.
And then he showed up alive the next day.
Actually, a couple days later, but yeah. Though, weren't they?
If you look at shit though, where the Russians are trying to dig up the fucking what's it called, red forest?
Sarcophagus?
No, they were digging in the forest,
Oh.
and they were moving dirt.
Oh. They were doing like foxholes and trenches and shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the likelihood of them surviving long term without either going sterile or developing cancer and not surviving, kind of slim. Kind of wee bit slim. Oh, 1 second. Bloody fucking killed.
It is kind of interesting, though, what happened to the Moskva.
Oh, come on now. We all know that the Russian media would never lie about what actually happened to it, and that it was actually a fire on board the munitions compartment.
The question is what started that fire.
Olympus.
Somebody lit their vodka on fire as a Molotov cocktail as a bet. You know how drunken sailors get, Jared.
Fair point. That is a very fair point. There's actually someone in the server asked if what the likelihood was of a modern warship like that actually sinking, and it's like greater than one would actually think.
I mean, it could even happen to the U.S. Navy, to be honest.
Yeah, you get hit in the wrong spot, and your damage control efforts are severely hampered.
If you get hit, yeah. But just spontaneously fire erupting and accidentally the entire munitions depot.
Well, you see what happened with the Bonhomme Richard, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to count that one.
Oh, or what was it? The USS Miami?
Yeah, the Miami.
Yeah, another.
Do-Rate Productions' old boat, actually, if I remember correctly. Haven't seen any of his stuff in a while. Is he making content anymore?
I don't know.
But everything like that, when it comes to, say, for example, certain countries and the media, I think that we can be kind of... if they say that 100 people died of their own, we can probably multiply that by at least 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's what I'm really morbidly curious to see is what the ultimate fallout is going to end up being. I This could have gone really bad really quick, but with how it's dragged on, uh, I see this turning into Russia being seen as a paper tiger again, but getting so pissed about it that they do the idiotic move and play a card that really shouldn't be, but I could see them going the tactical route. And then when things start to go against them, then they pull out the Tsar Bomba.
Yeah, it wouldn't really surprise me too much. Which, okay, being in the military, or having been in the military, how hard would you think that it would be to carpet bomb, say, for example, a city or a village, etc., with pamphlets in this day and age?
Actually, harder than one would expect, but also fairly easy. And so it really depends on. The first thing is area denial and whether or not you actually have to compete with that. Because if you don't have to literally fight to get there in the first place, then doing a pamphlet bombing that's easy. You can do that from any type of cargo aircraft. So you can take um, a civilian marked aircraft, fly it over at a low enough altitude that your dispersal of the pamphlets won't be ineffective.
Because what I'm thinking here would be more along the lines of single-use drones, lightweight, and then just sending them in, making sure that they dump the load. Like, yeah, poor choice of word, but
Phrasing.
making sure that they dump the payload. That's better. And then essentially disintegrate in such a way that it can't harm anyone coming down. And making sure that it's so abundantly clear that it isn't something that's a danger to people when it comes down, that it can't be mistaken by the populace for something that's actually dangerous or something that would be a weapon. Because no matter what media does, media's going to try to just turn it any way they can. If you do this to 50 cities and just plaster everything with posters, pamphlets, audio recordings, etc., etc., it's going to be harder to deny it.
Yeah. Oh well. What you would want to do with that is have the drones release their payload, but then continue on beyond the city limits or the area limits, and then disintegrate out there.
Yeah.
Because the issue I can see otherwise is that if you have something where they come within city limits and someone decides to try to take it down, or even something as simple as what's it called, they just get jammed.
Well, and that's where saturation comes in.
Yeah, but if it's something where they actually get into the city and they happen to, you know, lose altitude a bit too quickly, you don't want someone killed just because the drone has been either jammed or just shut down or whatever the fuck within the city.
Well, hardening of the electronics so you don't lose control, or have it so it's a pre-planned thing so you don't even have to control it. Circuit hardening is not a difficult thing anymore, so they would you would have to use a kinetic weapon to take it out at that point, which, if you're flying at low altitude, you're susceptible to so many different things that it really becomes a throwaway at that point. Because a small enough, an average sized drone at a low enough altitude, you can take that thing out with a handgun.
Yeah, depending on the size of it and everything like that. If you have something like if you imagine a cargo drone, wide wings, etc., that could potentially just have a payload of say 50 pamphlets and a couple of USB sticks with audio recordings, some shit like that. You could essentially run that off an 18650 battery and just an efficient enough what's it called propeller motor.
Mm.
I mean, you can even make the fucking fuselage out of what's it called balsa wood.
Yeah, it's at that point it becomes how long do you want it to travel before it actually completes its mission, and that's where there's more of the mission planning aspect of it that would be your determining factors, not a delivery effectiveness. It's getting to the drop area that would be the primary issue.
Yeah, which in that case, when you come to that point, then you could essentially use a high altitude delivery system, as in dropping them from plane far away, and then just have them all fly there on their own. Just slowly glide down and just use the motor in order to keep altitude somewhat stable at the time. Then when they get to the delivery area, lower the altitude, make sure that, you know, they don't manage to fucking airbomb someone to death with pamphlets, like some fucking Jehovah's or some bullshit, and then deliver the payload, get out of their city, and disintegrate.
It's not impossible. It's just whether or not any of the power players that would actually be in a position to push for anything like that would actually want that done and push for it to be done. I mean, go back and look at World War II. We did, the Allies did plenty of notification pamphlet releases like that in Central Europe and on Japanese held islands. So it's not unprecedented.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say the hardest part would be one, making sure that whoever writes the message is a fluent speaker and understands the grammar of the language, especially the written form of it. Because nowadays there are some people that don't understand languages, period, and they just use Google Translate to try and make an effective message, and it's just like,
Yeah, that doesn't
Yeah.
always work.
yeah, because I've noticed that there are times where I'll put in a word from another language in and have it translate to English and get an English word, and then when I put the English word in reverse, I get an entirely different word in the other language. I'm like, the fuck? So that just shows you how bad English is.
I'm all for translation software. Having something like that, because as far as we've been so far,
Leon, I think you need to read that one.
I'm gonna actually answer the second question there as yes, but not for that, not for the people you describe. It would be for the people receiving the message.
I mean, how far do you really want to spread the message? If they're going to stop by every fucking door, it's not really going to get that far. Especially not if it stays there to talk to like 20 minutes about our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ.
I'll be right back.
Yep. Otherwise, though, I mean, we could give them wingsuits, or just drop them from far enough up in the air. The second alternative does sound a little bit better, but they're going to have to scream all the way down to actually get the message out. Unless we go full die hard on them and just write the message on them. Yeah, that could actually work. I just hope that they're intact upon impact.
I mean, two birds, one stone. Two problems, one event to address it. And it could work.
Yeah. I don't see too many issues with it. Are we still monetized?
Oh, I've already submitted the request for them to review it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you know? We were talking about CBS in a less than praiseworthy manner earlier. So guess what? My theory about that being what gets the show demonetized so far is looking to be the case.
And not the whole thing about shit talking to Jehovah's Witnesses and all that stuff. Because that's completely legit.
Oh no. This was early on in the show that it had gone to limited monetization.
Amazing, isn't it? No, but just with everything like that there, because at least to me, it would be nice just to make them, or give them the chance, in order to see what the fuck's actually going on. Because as we all know, the Russian government isn't too happy when it comes to the whole telling people what's going on and all that stuff. They are very unhappy to do that shit. So I don't see too many issues with just trying to give them that chance. Trying to, in some way, form, shape, give them the information that could potentially, help them. Because if you're going to do that, I see less of an issue afterwards in trying to get certain leadership there removed, or at least not listened to.
Well, there are already grumbles that certain leadership there is on the way out simply because of the financial hardship that his decisions have caused.
Yeah, and with new leadership there, that should also mean a change of leadership slightly further down the line, which, with any luck, could potentially make it so that we don't have a situation which reminds everyone of mushrooms on our minds.
Yeah, about that.
I'm not entirely okay with that whole thing. It feels a bit not good.
Oh, that's another topic that I know is going to be coming up on the next show, which, I was...
on one?
Yeah, I was debating a 15-minute break between shows, but no, I think we'll go with the half hour. So we will be back on air at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Until then, oh boy, this is going to get interesting.
Doesn't arrive till Tuesday.
Or we might be going until Tuesday. I wouldn't mind taking the day off at work, but now that project has to get done, so shit. Anyways, we'll be back on air in a little bit. Y'all have fun, take your break, get a bite to eat, have a little fun, and when you're done in that 10 minutes, we'll see you back here.
Later.